Mexico City's Jewish mayor wants to be identified by policies, not ethnicity. Like many other liberal secular politicians around the world, Claudia Sheinbaum rarely identifies publicly as Jewish. It was during her successful campaign in Mexico City mayor that Claudia Sheinbaum made a reference to her Jewish heritage. Speaking before a group of Jewish women, she says she was proud of those origins. We celebrate all the holidays at my grandparents' house. For Sheinbaum, the capital city's first elected Jewish and female mayor, the reference to her Jewishness was rare. Like many other liberal, secular Jewish politicians around the world, Sheinbaum rarely identifies publicly as Jewish. You know what, though? Before we get into the weed of this, the weeds of this shit, why not? Let's do a snapshot, okay?
History.
Let's get into Mexico election. It's historic. What are the liberals saying? What are the leftists saying? Why is it important? Let's start off here. Let's start off our journey today, not on Israel, Palestine, but instead in Mexico, okay? Having said that, from what I understand, she was not great as the mayor of Mexico City, but
I hear leftists are split on her, including Hassan, apparently, especially when it comes to Mexico's politics. Here's my take on that. Claudia represented the left wing within the party. Most of its history, being a leftist in Mexico got you shot. So if you're thinking like, well, we could have done something else than this, I just want to say, not enough is buzzing between the ears. Does it mean that I have no critique or criticism of her? No. No, that's not what that means.
Neither here nor there. Let's continue.
It has been made in Mexico. Claudia Sheinbaum has been elected as the country's first ever female president. She told supporters she would not fail the Mexican people and vowed to reduce violence and improve the lives of women in a country where one of the world's highest rates of femicide. Huge celebrations in Mexico City main Zócalo, the square there. Ms. Sheinbaum will replace her mentor, the outgoing president Andrés Manuel López Obrador, on the 1st of October. Will Grant is there for us.
A genuine moment of history in Mexico. In a nation where women only got the vote in the 1950s, Claudia Sheinbaum becomes...
Bro, you need to stop sending me censored mem posts when it comes to just in general, okay? Just in general. You guys need to stop it, okay? I'm sorry. I don't want to hear... I don't want to hear from an account that literally will be like, this is the Jewish president. It's like, come on, bro. We know what you're doing, okay? You don't even know what our policies are. Jesus Christ. I'm genuinely confused. Why do you say AMLO is leftist? He's openly criticized the U.S. and brought the Mexican minimum wage up. The economy is going up and doing lots of senior population. Sure, the cartel and crime has skyrocketed. Yeah, I think, and I said this before, AMLO is, one, very popular for good reason. It's very popular. His policies are very popular. He's overall, he has some weird takes on a lot of issues, but he is the best Mexico has to offer. Okay.
Now, what I'm excited about is AMLO. If I'm being honest, I liked AMLO because he was pushing Mexico in a left-wing direction, charting his own course, developing Mexico in a way that it absolutely needed. Which was building the apparatus of having unions and labor rights and minimum wages and things like that. But he was also a little bit of a kook. I'm not going to lie. He was a little bit of a kook.
Okay. And it seems to me like Claudia Sheinbaum is going to follow through on that tradition. Okay. My question to the people who are beyond critical of AMLO but saying oh, he's bad or he's just awful, because there's a couple things that he did throughout his administration that I openly championed and said was good, whether it be the renationalization of petroleum oil extraction or whether it be the nationalization of lithium. Those are some pretty good things. Overall, obviously not great on the cartel stuff, and people are very critical about the way that the military has been beefed up. Some people say it's good, and the military does a better job and is harder to corrupt than the local police are. Others say that the military has been violent, suppressive, brutal, and turning into the Mexican government's own version of the cartel. Having said that, however, it seems to me like it is definitely the lesser evil voting alternative with no real alternative whatsoever beyond that. Like, I don't really know. I don't really know what the other... You're wrong on this, like you were with Fetterman. Nah, fam. Am I wrong to assume the censor men pose their pro-Palestinian views from a firmly anti-Semitic point of view? Like, they don't care for Palestinians at the end of the day. They just don't like Jewish people. I don't know. It could be a little column A, column B, but it doesn't matter to me. As soon as someone is like demonstrating anti-Semitic bullshit, I'm like not going to be on board with that regardless. I'm never going to... It's going to take a lot for me to trust someone after that shit. Okay. So... The other female candidate was wanted to privatize the electric industry. That's how bad she was. Yeah, it's like, what are we doing? You have someone who is like on the aesthetic front, she hits all the markers. She's a woman, okay? She's a climate scientist. Even on the leftist front, there's a lot of things that AMLO has done, and being AMLO's spiritual successor in that regard is good. Okay. Having said that, what's the alternative? Like the small business owner, the entrepreneur, like the right-wing entrepreneur, the opposition with the interest of like beefing up, the startup culture in Mexico City or some shit. Like, what are we doing? Like, what the fuck is that about? You know?
Was the first woman to break centuries of male domination over the Mexican presidency, shattering the glass ceiling for generations of women to come.
I do personally like that people ride for a person whose like family is historically communist because she's a woman. Like, liberals have to do this thing where they just literally have to be like, well, this is great. It's the glass ceiling being broken. Isn't that wonderful? The glass ceiling is being shattered. Meanwhile, like, again, grandparents, straight up Mexican communists, dad communist, from what I understand. It's like, it's great.
Que por primera vez en 200 años.
For the first time in 200 years, women have reached the presidency, she told her jubilant supporters in the capital's main plaza.
It's historic, completely. It's for the women who are no longer with us and those who are still fighting, not just in the political arena, but in any way where we have conviction as women. To see someone who comes...
Yeah, this shit was crazy, by the way. Mexican candidate assassinations hit grim record ahead of Sunday's election. 37, bro. Mexico's election is now the bloodiest in its modern history after a candidate running for local office in the central Puebla state was murdered on Friday at a political rally, taking the number of assassinated candidates to 37 ahead of Sunday's vote. Like, it's a little different, you know? The situation is a little different, okay? Twitter leftists think they have more credibility than Evo. Yeah, I mean, guys. This is like, you know, Giannis Varoufakis posted celebrating her. I'm not like super clued in on her policies at all. But, you know, there's a lot of people that I do trust, that I am aligned with politically, that are seemingly very excited about the prospect. So I'll reserve my judgment for what she ends up doing. The real problem is that Morena is getting control of Senate and Congress. They can make changes in the Constitution now. They have whole control of the country. Well, here's the issue there, okay? Which it already did happen, as far as I understand, in Mexican politics regardless. But that could be a good thing, or it could be a very bad thing. It's just entirely related to the ideological commitment. It's entirely related to the ideological commitment that the party has to legitimately improving the material conditions of all people in Mexico. If they have that genuine vested interest, then it's a good thing. If they don't have that, and by the way, this is being done technically through the democratic process, so it's not like I know that there are other aspects of it. I know that there are other aspects of it. For example, the AMLO stuff as it pertains to the Supreme Court, right? I think there was some issue with the courts. Having said that, however, I'm not immediately going to be like, oh no, they are too popular, you know? Here's what Giannis said. You should trust no politician, but at the same time, consider everything AMLO did for the poor in Mexico. Claudia is committed to continuing AMLO's policies in favor of those lacking power and wealth, but that does not mean we should not be ready for fair criticism. Yeah. Like, I am going to reserve my judgment for her policies if she does, I mean, when she does inevitably follow through on them, rather than immediately be like, oh, this is bullshit. Because the reality is that having this popular governing mandate, historically speaking, has actually led to prosperity in the past as well. It has also been incredibly damaging for Latin American countries in the other direction. And what I mean by that is when it's not actually the democratic process that brings someone in the position of power, but a coup d'etat backed by the U.S. state that then go in and create this massive dictatorship. Oftentimes, however, when a incredibly popular, a populist, democratically organized movement that ends up working on solving some of the underlying material inequalities, when they actually have this incredible popular mandate to operate and they demonstrate a commitment to that goal overall, that goal that got them that popularity to begin with, that yields pretty positive outcomes. And it's not just in Latin America either. This has also happened in the United States of America. Who am I referencing here? Obviously, no one in contemporary American history. I'm talking about FDR. So ultimately, we have this capacity to go, oh my God, this is terrifying. I don't really, what's going on? We have like a complete control of Congress and the presidency and there's no checks and balances. And it's like, we're kind of, in my opinion, behaving like American liberals who say stuff like, they want to do split ticket voting because they want like a Republican Congress with a Democratic president. I'm not necessarily inclined to immediately say, no, it's good to have opposition in all instances.
I think one of the things that's very interesting is people are incredibly stupid, and it's very frustrating to see how dumb some of the analysis is. Like, listen, I always try to look at the the ultras and their whatever an ultra or a trot is saying something. I tend to look at it and. Wow, they're stupid on Shine Bomb. This one is, they're taking the cake on this one. They're taking the cake on this one. Yeah, you know what she should do? She should declare war on the United States. Whew. This one is real dim, real stupid.
I don't personally care about what these guys are aesthetically presenting or what happens in this situation. Does that make sense? Please say PRI, not PRI. Can you sponsor me a visa? Maybe. Yeah, this is a real argument. I used to love the metro system in Mexico City until roofs started falling off, trains derailing and crashing more often. This is something I have heard. Overpasses falling on top of pedestrians. Now, that isn't entirely her fault, obviously. Mexico's crumbling infrastructure is not going to be directly the fault of the last Mexico City mayor, but I have heard from people that she wasn't a very good mayor and more so a careerist. Like, the real thing is, I don't think she's going to do feminism, for example. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people are like, well, that's a woman in charge now. Like, Mexico's about to be feminist, and I don't personally think that is going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think she's going to advance feminist causes. Maybe she will. I don't know. But like, it's the social issues that I don't think are going to change in Mexico. But I'll take what I can get in terms of like any kind of advancement for the poorest Mexicans. Also, here's the 3-minute ad break now. Only for selfish reasons, of course, because like I said, I want every Mexican to be able to subscribe at the top of the hour. So the point is, it's all a matter of what will they do with the popular mandate they have? How did they arrive at this popular mandate? Well, it seems like they arrived at it through good policy, or at least comparatively good policy. I wouldn't say it's the best policy, but overall, making the most of making the most that they could with the obvious limitations that they have. We often forget how long and how arduous a process it is to change, especially a country like Mexico, which is like, you know, it feels like it's a piece of land that is governed by a bunch of decentralized like, no way you're calling Claudia woke. No, that's a meme, man. Jesus Christ. Kind of unrelated, but I remember last election's Partido Verde literally sponsored a ton of Mexican influencers, and they all posted the same story supporting the party. Yeah. You're not going to be able to unironically, one, remove corruption as an element from Mexican politics, and two, you're certainly not going to be able to do that in one term, and three, you are not going to be able to dismantle the influence of the cartel. So, but yeah, see, this is what I mean. The metro system didn't have maintenance work for 53 years, and somehow it's the current government's fault that the infrastructure is crumbling. They handled poorly, though. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. It's like a competent governor, a competent leader, a competent mayor would try to work against that, but it's not entirely in her hands. That's my point. And the same went for AMLO as well. So we'll see what happens. People endorsed by AMLO has governed Mexico City for the past 20 years, though. Anyway, let's get back to it. Let's see what the media is saying, and then we'll talk about it.
Fight at the bottom to the presidency, it's so emotional. For me, it's marvelous.
Your chat ate my ass yesterday for saying mate and called me a fake Mexican. I live in Puebla. Puebla! And I'm called Carlos. I've never been to the USA. Puebla! I don't know. I can't stop saying Puebla like, what's his name? When he was talking about the UAW strike, and he's like, calling Claudia woke is wild. Claudia is the handpick of the current president who just want to change the Mexican constitution so he can be president forever. Oh my God, bro. Let's continue.
Of such entrenched machismo, what Claudia Sheinbaum has achieved here is no small feat. Other women have tried and failed, but her offer of continuity with the governing party's social policies, which have pulled millions from poverty, have proved hugely popular with the electorate.
Her critics, in particular,
The right-wing liberal freaks are coming out of the woodwork today. I don't know if like there's that many right-wing liberals in Mexico that are like also big fans of mine at the same time, who are just like, all I will point to is this. Where is the alternative? Where is the alternative? In fairness, I think some leftists are calling her a Zionist in the same way that they call AOC a Zionist, just complaining that she's not critical enough of Israel and that strategic ambiguity is a form of soft Zionism or whatever. Yeah, except her positions on Israel would merely be a continuation of AMLO's positions on Israel and not necessarily born out of her Jewish heritage or whatever the That's my point. So if she does continue strategic ambiguity against Israel, then that is directly a consequence of following through on AMLO's strategic ambiguity, in spite of the fact that there is, as far as I understand, a lot of people in the administration currently that is hypercritical of Israel, and including but not limited to those who have tried to get Mexico to join the ICJ court case as well, alongside South Africa.
in particular her opponent in this vote, Xochitl Galvez, are left deeply frustrated, especially by the huge margin of victory. They say her mentor, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, is a populist and an authoritarian, and that Ms. Sheinbaum will govern as his puppet, something she denies. This election has been historic for all the wrong reasons too. It's been Mexico's most violent campaign in living memory, with dozens of candidates threatened and murdered. One of them was the candidate for mayor of Coyuca de Benítez, Alfredo Cabrera, shot in the back of the head by a gunman at
What is happening with this video?
his closing rally. His murder was a sign of the huge security task, a fear she isn't up to
What is
the
happening?
huge security task facing Ms. Sheinbaum. A staggering 11 women and girls are killed every day
I know they can't show it. Why are they shaking it though?
in Mexico, and her critics fear she isn't up to the task of tackling the problem.
If Sheinbaum wins, I think the militarization will continue increasing. They will keep on having ever so more power, you know, both the military and the narco, because they have been together for decades.
For now, her supporters are celebrating having made history. Once the party ends, most voters want the president-elect to prioritize drug cartel crime over all other issues in her in-tray. Claudia Sheinbaum inherits a nation mired in violence, Her challenge now will be to succeed where so many men before her have failed. Will Grant, BBC News, Mexico.
Brother, those are the kind of people say we are becoming Cuba because you voted for Morena. Yeah.
City.
One can only hope. One can only wish that Mexico becomes Cuba. Okay. Like, great. That doesn't sound like a bad idea at all. That sounds like an objectively good turn for Mexican politics. Holy fuck, dude. Cuba is doing, you know, all things considered, despite the crippling blockades and endless sanctions that are completely unjustifiable, completely inhumane against the Cuban state by the global dominant hegemonic superpower, United States of America, for the crime of having a revolution against America's, the American-backed dictator, okay? I would say that Cuba is probably doing pretty good. If Cuba was allowed to thrive on top of everything else, like if they weren't so hyper-reliant earlier on the USSR and then beyond USSR now, China, if they could like participate in the global marketplace as one does, they would do even better. Chad, don't you think Hasanabi should go to Cuba? Because I do. I had the opportunity to go, but apparently they can't. I can't really live stream out there, so I am not going to go. I was going to go with like the People's Brigade or something. Like I forget what it's called. But you can't really live stream out there. So unfortunately, I'm a censored man. This was the bloodiest in terms of history of modern Mexico. And who are the victims? Poor people in the majority. Wait, what? This was the bloodiest term in the history of modern Mexico? I'm not ignoring this fact. It's one of the major criticisms that I think the AMLO government has. It's just that at a certain point, you have to recognize it is kind of outside of their control and outside of their power. You know what I mean?
Vanessa Rubio Marquez served as Deputy Finance Minister of Mexico, and I asked for her reflections on the historic moment for the country.
Definitely, this is a huge historic milestone in Mexico for women, of course, but not only for my generation, but for the generation of my grandmother, my mother. It's been only 71 years since women were granted the right to vote in Mexico. We have had 20 women holding governorships in Mexico. I myself was the first deputy minister of finance in the country in 2016. So we have been moving forward, but still it's a lot in our way to find parity at the end. But yes, this is a huge milestone.
She's incredibly close to the outgoing president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. How will she be different from him, though?
I think Mexico has a very strong presidency, a very strong presidential regime. So I think she will be her own figure, but it's yet to be seen where she stands in very crucial issues, such as the definition of the democratic foundations of the country, the relationship with the legislative, an independent judiciary. How will she come along with this militarization of the country over the last 5 years? Not only security matters, but the military now control the customs and have built a refinery and have built an airport and own an airline. So that's a key issue to define moving forward. And also very key policies such as public finances. We're running the largest public deficit this year over the last 35 years. What the new energy matrix and the new energy policy will be, and also a series of elements in relation to competitiveness of the Mexican economy vis-a-vis
the violence in Mexico is the same propaganda that Trump and the right always say about the place. Different problems like guns in the USA. Wait, what? I mean, the violence in Mexico is definitely very real. Cartel violence specifically is very, very real. It's not like, that's not like a fake problem. That's a very real issue. Just like femicide is a very real issue as well. Those are legitimate problems. It's just that those are such, I feel the way I look at it is like, it's almost like grading it on a curve, because like, what the fuck are you supposed to do? Like, there's a 6-year term limit regardless, but beyond that, it's like this has been this has been Mexican politics for a very long time. I don't know how any administration can tackle it over the course of like 6 years. Maybe over like 2 decades, 3 decades, you can like try to chip away at it. Why doesn't Mexico crack down on cartel violence and jail every gang member like Nayib Bukele, the greatest leader in modern human history, did? Yeah, great question. That would be impossible, okay? Because they have American guns and American weapons and American gear and American dollars lining up their pockets. And therefore, they are, in many instances, more powerful than the military. So you can't really do that. And also, that's not a good solution anyway. Mexico's cartel problem is not one that Mexico itself can solve. Mexico's cartel problem can only be solved with American politics. That is the unfortunate reality of the matter. They get their guns from us and they get their money from us. We are the market and we give them guns. So there is no way to solve it internally with internal Mexican politics in general.